Hello, my little buzzlings, and welcome to The Tea with B, a podcast where you spill the tea on anything to be featured on the show. Share your ups, downs, and everything in between because the sweet is never as sweet without the sour. So, let's talk. Send us an email at theteawithbpodcast@gmail.com. On today's episode, we are spilling the tea on NFTs or non-fungible tokens. And I gotta say, I am super stoked for today's guest, as she is the artist and the brilliant mind behind the Pros and Cons NFT project. Pros and Cons NFT is all about uplifting ethically made plus sustainable fashion, gender equality, and so much more. They just had their mint in mid-April and show no signs of slowing down. A big welcome to Alana from Pros and Cons NFT.
Thank you so much for having me, Bea. I'm so excited to be here today.
Thank you for being here. I'm so stoked. Okay, so let's get into it. Alana, tell us about yourself, your history, and especially what prompted you to go into this new digital art space.
Yeah, so in real life, I actually work in sciences, so something completely different, but my passion has always been for fashion. Even when I was a kid, I remember using those disposable socks that you'd get at the department store to try on shoes, and I would take those home and I would make clothes for my dolls out of them. And I think that's where my love for all of this initially began, and it just kind of grew from there. I was always interested in different styles and fashion than other people were wearing, and I always had a hard time finding that. This is pre-internet, pre-online shopping era, so you had to go to the mall, and if it wasn't in style, you couldn't find what you were looking for. So that's when I decided that I wanted to start sewing and making my own clothes. I learned everything from scratch, right from the beginning of how to sew to pattern making. I've learned pattern making computer programs, and then it got to the point where I wanted to start my own little home business a few years ago. And the whole point of this was just to be a slow fashion designer, do everything from scratch, do everything myself. And I was really excited for it, and I had some interest, and then unfortunately COVID hit and people weren't going anywhere, especially during that first little bit. People couldn't even go anywhere, so they didn't necessarily.
What's the point of dressing up during that period, right?
Exactly, right? They weren't going to weddings or anything, so unfortunately it slowed down a little bit. And around this time, I also started switching to digital fashion designing instead of pencil and paper. So it was just a way for me to try out new things without wasting materials or just trying to be different. And that's kind of when I realized that that is an art form in itself. Around this time, my partner actually introduced me to the Web3 space. He was showing me other projects completely unrelated to fashion, and just kind of what they were doing. This project has some utility where you get some in real life events, or this project is about art. And it wasn't really until I started looking into the fashion related projects and entities within the space that it really interested me. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where I went with it, is that I decided that my artwork could be shown in a completely different way to completely different people all around the world that I never may have interacted with otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And Alana, did you face any difficulties transitioning to that digital world? There's a lot of people who are kind of fighting this change that is coming. Did you feel that way, or how was the transition for you?
I mean, it's a lot of information, and this space is 24/7 because it is worldwide. So it's not like you clock in and you clock out. You could always be learning something or checking something out. So really what I would say is, you have to go at your own pace. The learning curve can be as steep or as gradual as you want it to be. I found a lot of listening to Twitter spaces and reading articles and reading up about other projects and their missions is where I got a lot of the information from. So it was easy for me to put on a Twitter space while I was driving to and from work or something like that and just get information that way. I also started talking with other like-minded projects, other fashion-related projects or women-led projects, and meeting people that I never would have before. So that really opened my eyes to the space. And as scary as it is to jump in with both feet, like I said, you could go as slow or as fast as you want. So I did have a lot of support and a lot of people kind of showing me which way I could go, not necessarily which way I should go, but it is a lot.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you said that. It's definitely a lot and it takes a lot of learning to get into the space. And I love that you did that and you continued. And I love your NFT project. And I've told you this a million times before because I'm also huge into fashion. Now, Alana, tell me about some of the technical aspects before we get into your beautiful artwork and the project itself. Tell me about the timeline of an NFT project, how do you get started, and some of the technical details that are not too fun to discuss, but are necessary to get a project started.
Yeah, so I would say, again, the timeline can be as short or as long as you want it to be. Really, it's about building a community, getting people who are interested in you as an artist and you as a community, not necessarily even just the artwork. They have to believe in you and have a connection with you. So it did take us a few months to get to where we wanted to be, but we really wanted it to be more of an organic growth. We didn't just want a large audience of people. We wanted people who were fashion oriented or interested in women-led projects and just people who believed in us. You know, some people think that you have to do everything within this space. You have to do the art and the marketing and the management and the development, but you can really choose whichever avenue you want to go into and then connect with other people to get your project going. So for us, for example, I don't know any of the smart contract stuff. That is not my forte. We actually have an awesome development team, the Meta Musée, who does all of that because that's their specialty, right? Like we all have our thing that we love to do and they love doing that. One of our devs came up with something cool the other week where he's like, when we did our reveal, he's like, oh, I figured this out. And I had no idea what he was talking about, but he was so excited about it that he figured it out. And that made me feel good too, that we're all in this space together and we're all in this project together.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I love it. And I'm glad that you brought that up because anyone who may be interested into going into this digital artwork space, you don't have to know every aspect. There is a lot of coding, of course. And if you're just the artist and you want to focus on that, you can do that by getting an amazing development team like you. Now, Alana, let's get into your artwork itself and the focus of your project. I love it. I've told you, I'm trying not to gush too much over it, but tell me more about your project, about your artwork. And I know that you also have some special limited edition NFTs. Talk about that and the benefits that people get by buying those.
Yeah, I am so excited about this collection. So, a brief overview of it is we have several different models who are wearing variations of outfits that I've designed in real life. So, one of the points of the project is to show transition of outfits and how you can easily transform something to make it something completely different. So, for example, you have a dress and you add an accessory and now it can become something fancier, or you've had a dress for a while and you can make the skirt shorter and it's a completely different outfit. And it just enhances that sustainable and lifelong approach to garment wearing, that you don't have to wear something once and then either put it to the back of your closet or throw it out and get rid of it because you've already worn it. You can change it up slightly or mix and match, and it's something completely different. The project also brings attention to ethically made fashion and the person behind the garment. Mm-hmm. So one of the big problems we find in the garment industry is just that people don't necessarily know where their clothes are coming from. And we wanted people to know the person behind the outfit. So with the NFT project itself, there will be some rarity traits, and we have our rarity trait is a crown. And if people mint an NFT with a crown, they get a coupon code to redeem for a free handmade dress that's designed and sewn by me. And the point of this is just hopefully to let them perpetuate that message of ethically and slow made fashion and bring the message forward to other people. So we're trying to use our artwork to bring a bigger message to the world.
Mm-hmm. And I absolutely love that message. I'm so glad that you brought up environmentalism because that is very important to me. And I know it's very important to you when it comes to fashion. So talk about where your passion for ethical and sustainable clothing came from and why it's so important for people to realize the cost of fashion and why you are so passionate about preaching it.
So I think what really brought this information to light is when I was shopping one day and, I found a lot of the stuff. You could buy a t-shirt for $10 or $15 and it seemed great, but I started to wonder to myself, like, why am I able to buy this for such a low amount? And what is it that made it get to this point that I can only spend $10 on a t-shirt and it's considered fine? And I started looking into it a little bit more, and it's actually very shocking, some of the conditions that go on within these garment factories. And what a lot of people don't know is that these big companies, these fast fashion companies, outsource to other factories so that they can play the out of sight, out of mind argument that they don't necessarily know what's going on within these factories because they don't own them. And unfortunately, a lot of the conditions of these workers are not great. There's a lot of forced overtime, poor ventilation, poor working conditions, poor pay. And I felt that we needed to bring that message forward. It's not necessarily that people don't care about the message. It's just that we don't know. These big companies are so good at what they do. They have like marketing teams behind them and everybody and all this money behind them to hide these issues. And I know I'm a little guy, but I wanted to bring that message forward.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you are bringing it forward because I'm just like you. I found out the rose-colored glasses of fast fashion broke for me a couple of years ago, and that's why I'm so passionate about this. Now, Alana, tell me, there is a few different categories when it comes to kind of ethical, sustainable fashion. It's ethical fashion, slow fashion, and sustainable fashion. And what are the differences between them?
Yeah, so a lot of the time they're used interchangeably by people, but they are very different. So for one, slow fashion has to do with who's making your clothes. So these big companies use assembly line production, a lot of workers. Slow fashion is more one person or a few people touching your garment from the beginning to the end. So I would say that I'm a slow fashion designer because I'm the only one who's sewing the outfit. It might be like a small tailor shop or something like that, but putting more love and more attention into the garment than just doing an assembly line and doing one part of the outfit continuously throughout the day. Ethical fashion has to do more with the conditions of the workers. So are they being treated well? Are they getting paid a fair wage? Are they able to go home to their families often, and understanding those conditions of those workers? Sustainability has to do more with the impact on the environment. So whether that's organic fabric or the dyeing process, or just having an outfit that's good quality, that's going to last you more than a couple of washes than you get from these bigger companies. So sustainability kind of has a bit of a different context. It's just holding on to a garment for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And that's the one of the other things that about fast fashion that comes into the cost of that $10 t-shirt that you're buying is because the quality is oftentimes a lot less, you're more likely to throw that t-shirt out and get rid of it very quickly. So while that $10 seems like a great deal, in the end, if you're buying 100 of $10 t-shirts that are lasting you a week, that's probably not the best deal. And I love that that's what you focus on, making sure that things are done correctly. And I think it's about time that the rose-colored glasses of fast fashion break for us. Alana, you mentioned the community of Web3 a little bit earlier, and you said how when you started, pros and cons, you went onto the community, found people who were interested in the same things that you are. Now, how does that really work? Because there is a huge difference between Web2 and Web3 kind of world. The community aspect is very important. So tell me how you built a community, how you let other people know who you are in this space, and do you find that it's inclusive?
Yeah, so a lot of it at the beginning was just getting connected to other people who had the same interests as me. So before we even started the project, I was just kind of perusing the Twitter spaces about other fashion projects and just fashion-minded people and kind of seeing what they were doing and connecting with them, asking them questions, and everybody was so kind and so helpful. It is a very different experience in Web3 versus Web2. I find everybody wants to lift each other up. It's not about competition, it's about building this world together and what we can all do together. So I did find we had a lot of support right off the bat from people who wanted to see us succeed. And what I love about the space is that I could connect with people all around the world who had the same interests as me. And I think that other people find the same. You know, you may not have people in real life who like sewing or like fashion, but you can log onto the internet and you can find a whole community of people right at your fingertips who like it. So like us, for example, you know, we streamed some of Paris Fashion Week and we were able to watch it with other people who liked watching it, but nobody in real life likes to watch that. So I now have friends from all over the world who are interested in things that I am as well. I also connected with people who like sewing, and we talk about sewing tips and ethical fashion tips, you know, stuff like that. And it's just about, again, lifting each other up and paying it forward. So one of the things I love about the community is that we do a lot of stuff with other fashion related projects as well. We host Twitter spaces. My dev team started a fashion museum where all fashion projects are welcome to showcase their artwork. It's for free. It's just a space where we can all kind of gather together and lift each other up.
I love that. And we will have the links to all of those projects in the description for this episode. I know that when it comes to helping the community, pros and cons is also helping the community in the broader sense outside of the NFT world. And I know that some of the proceeds are going to a foundation. Tell me which foundation it is and why you guys are doing that.
Yeah, so we are actually helping support the Canadian Women's Foundation, who is an awesome foundation, helps women all over Canada. And we wanted to help them because one of the big proponents is, you know, think globally but act locally. When you're able to uplift people within your community, then they can go forward and uplift others. And hopefully we can make that worldwide. So we are donating some of our proceeds to the Canadian Women's Foundation, and we are so excited to be able to do that.
I love that. That is so amazing. Alana, let's get back to getting into the tech world. Now, as you mentioned, your career to start out with was in healthcare, and now you're in both of these spaces. How is the day-to-day still? Are you finding the same challenges? Do you find that being in this space, balancing two worlds at the same time, is it difficult? Do you plan on staying in the space forever? And what are your thoughts about digital fashion designing, and what do you think it's going to look like in the future?
So I think there are challenges, and I think there's always going to be challenges, but that just means that I'm growing as a person. I never want to get to the point in my life in anything that I do where I'm done learning and I'm done trying something new. So yes, it can be overwhelming, but you know, I just sometimes have to take a breather, step away for a little bit and come back. But it's no different than anything else in your life. But what I love about the community is the worldwide connections that you get to make. So, you know, before all this tech, I really was limited to who I knew in real life. And now I'm making connections from the UK, from the States, from Australia, everywhere. And it's it's the way of the future. I think we thought this way when like cell phones came out, right? Like, why would I message a friend when I could just call them on the phone? And now look, your phone is attached to you 24/7 and you're texting. And if somebody calls you, you don't even want to answer it. So I think it's just the way of the future, and it's a new revolution. We've dealt with this before in so many different ways, and it's just, this is the new one. What I love about the tech world and fashion is the transition to digital fashion making. So before all of this, you used to have to make a pattern, cut out the fabric, try it on your mannequin or your model, and then make changes, go back to the pattern, try it again. And it was very wasteful, like resources, time, etc. So the digital fashion actually allows you to try your designs on a digital model before you even print anything out or you buy the fabric or any of that. So I think that's wonderful. I get to save materials. I get to play around with things that I may not have even wanted to try before or had the resources to try before. So I love that. I also think it's a way for us to kind of gauge what people are interested in instead of making 20 outfits of a dress and then people don't really love it. It ends up sitting at the back of a store. Well, we could put it out there digitally and see if people are interested in it or not. I think it's great for the little guys and the big guys because it's going to save money, time, and resources.
Environmentally conscious on all levels. I love that. Do you have any advice for anyone who may be interested in entering the space but is afraid of that learning curve when it comes to Web3?
I would say just listen, join some Twitter spaces and just listen. Find your niche, find what you're interested in, and you're going to get all these people who have a wealth of knowledge. And just start connecting. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and just keep pushing forward.
I love it. Now, I'm a huge supporter of women. Women supporting women is very, very important to me. And I know it's important to you and to the project. Talk about that.
So a lot of the Web3 space is male dominated. And I don't think it's for lack of trying. I just think it tends to be a male dominated space. And it's, I think we have to do more education to bring women into the space. But I have found so much support and so much inclusivity within the Web3 space with women-led projects. We all lift each other up. Even the men within the space, I have to say, are very supportive. Everybody is welcome in this space. And that's what I love about it. It doesn't matter what you look like in real life or what you do for a living or where you live. You can be whoever you want to be and really live your passion.
I so agree with you, and that's why I love the Web3 space as well. And I agree, even the men that are supporting the women-led projects, they're so fantastic. But this space is so different because you can really feel that women support each other. We want each other to succeed, and I absolutely love that. So if there's any women out there that are considering it, are a little afraid, don't be. And like Alana said, just join Twitter spaces because that's honestly one of the best ways to learn about all of this. And you'll catch on pretty quickly because initially it sounds like they're talking a different language, but you start catching on pretty quickly. Alana, you have been so amazing. Is there anything else that I forgot to mention that you'd like to discuss?
I think just if you're interested in fashion and environmentalism and helping the world, please feel free to come and check us out or check out any other projects that you feel you may resonate with as well.
Absolutely. Tell us where they can find pros and cons or where you would like to be found.
You can find us a few different places, actually. The easiest is probably through our Twitter, and then you can connect with us through our Linktr, sends you to our Discord or our website or our minting website. But please feel free to reach out to us through Twitter.
Yes, Alana is amazing at getting back. And like we just mentioned, the Web3 community is very accepting and very loving. So make sure to reach out to Alana if you have any of those same passions. We will have all the information in the description of the episode. And Alana, thank you so much again for being a guest on the Tea with Bee.
Thanks so much, Bea.
And a very big thank you to you for tuning to this episode of the Tea with B podcast. Remember, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The Tea with B, or send us an email at theteawithbpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, little buzzlings,